All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on the What Worked for Me podcast. Today we have Nate Bird, who has successfully lost about 90 pounds. He's a husband, all-around good guy. He's in the finance industry. I think deals with a lot of the same day-to-day grind that we all do, trying to figure out how to better our health. Is there anything else you'd like to introduce yourself with, Nate?
Um, just someone who's passionate about fitness and passionate about diversity, about helping people to to be the best person they can be.
That's great. So, Nate, every story has a beginning. And the beginning of a weight loss story is kind of going back to when you gained the weight and how you found yourself in that situation. So, how did you find yourself at the point where you were thinking like, okay, maybe I should change my life and try to get healthier?
Um, Honestly, a lot of it connects to how I was brought up. Um, Growing up, my dad he was a personal trainer for a good part of our lives, and he was also very intense. He would put a lot of focus on like our weight, like me and all my siblings. He put a lot of focus on how much we weighed, how often we were exercising, all of that. And so, I'm grateful he set up like a good foundation for me to learn a lot of important things about fitness, about weightlifting. And I have like a lot of good knowledge from him. But also, he kind of, helped me establish a pretty unhealthy relationship with both fitness and nutrition, to the point where I was kind of like obsessing over like, oh, I have to be in the gym for 2.5 hours a day. I, have to be doing this, with my eating, things like that. And so, during the time that I gained a lot of weight, I was still trying to be pretty active, but it was really difficult to like find that motivation all of the time because my relationship with fitness was pretty unhealthy, right? And I felt I had to do it out of an obligation. When I first got to college, my dad would call me at like 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, and he would like tell me to get up and like give me a workout to go do at the gym. So I'd have to like get up in the morning, go to the gym, do whatever workout he assigned, and come home. And so just kind of established like this very unhealthy relationship with fitness.
That sounds
And
pretty
so
pretty intense.
yeah, it was. There's a lot more to it, but that's kind of like an example of what it was like. And to give it context, my dad was in the military at one point. And he, even though he was only in for one enlistment, he did carry a lot of those military principles and like the way that he raised us. And so yeah, that was part of it. So it was not uncommon for me as a teenager to be in the gym 2, 3 hours a day. Walk slash jog maybe like 3 to 5 miles a day. That stuff was not uncommon. And so I was in pretty good shape. Younger, but I also love to eat. Right, when you exercise a lot, you get a big
Don't we
appetite.
all?
Yeah, and so as that experience with fitness and finding it difficult to get that motivation, I still had a hefty appetite, right? And so the two started to kind of unbalance each other. Where a lot of the things that I would eat, especially when I was stressed out, I would stress eat lots of snacks, things like that, and candy. My weakness is gummy bears and gummy worms. I'll eat those all day. So I was eating a lot of that and not able to find the motivation to go and exercise as much. And so, and then on top of that, I got married in about 2019. And so that was around the time that I started to kind of gain a ton of weight, because, getting into a relationship can make you like more contented, uh, or like, less worried about personal development or whatever because you're working on relationship development. And then also, the stress of life, the stress of dealing with family issues, all those kinds of things just kind of built up. And then also the pandemic hit in 2020. So that also invited a sedentary lifestyle because the gym was closed. And so, you know, during that time, I was still trying to find the motivation to exercise, find the motivation to eat right, but also I had a lot of time on my hand, a lot of time to just sit, do nothing. I ended up getting my personal training certification. Uh, you know, Took the course for that online, got that, was able to go and start working for a gym. But with the pandemic, it made it kind of difficult to keep a clientele going. And also it was kind of, it kind of affected my confidence to be kind of a bigger guy. I was very strong. Had a lot of like, very muscular, but also had a lot of like extra fat on me as well. And so I
How
was kind
how
of
big did you
self-conscious
get when
about
you
that.
said you got up
Uh,
to your biggest?
yeah, so at my biggest, at the beginning of maybe 2020, I think in 2022. At the beginning of 2022, I was about 320, 325 pounds.
Okay.
So yeah, it got to be a pretty good size. Started getting like the knee pain, back pain, all of that. And not a lot of mobility, stuff like that. And it kind of wore on me because obviously I didn't want that for myself. I wanted to be healthy, well, I wanted my heart to work right, all my joints and things like that to work right. Um, but I was going about it all the wrong way. I was still in the gym like crazy, still doing a lot of exercise, but I was also not eating well. Um, and those things were kind of affecting me because I was like, why am I working out so much? I'm going to the gym, as much as I can. And if the gym is closed and I'm like going for walks, I'm going outside trying to do all this, but like, I'm not getting any better. I'm still gaining weight. Um, and eventually it got to a point where I realized that my relationship with fitness and my relationship with nutrition was the issue, uh, and that I needed to adjust that and stop focusing and obsessing over that part so much. And so honestly, what I did, I took a break from the gym for a while. I didn't go to the gym for probably about six months or so. I just stayed out of the gym and I started working on my mental health. I started going to therapy. Um, and in going to therapy and starting to like work on some other things in my life, as well as trauma with my dad and with with my upbringing, I was able to realize that like a lot of the ways that I saw myself were through the eyes of other people and what they expected of me, what they wanted for me. And I stopped and I thought about what do I want for myself? I wanted to be, I wanted to be a lot of things, but I wanted to be someone who was healthy, someone who um, was not just mentally healthy, or I'm sorry, not just physically healthy, but like mentally and emotionally healthy as well. And so I kind of started to pair all of those things together. Um, and in doing that, I had to adjust the way that I approached exercise, adjust the way that I approached fitness, adjust the way that I approached nutrition. So I stopped worrying about necessarily eating the right things and just focused on why I wanted to eat what I wanted to eat. Why is it that you would rather eat a Bacon King combo from Burger King with 8 chicken nuggets for $1.49 on the side? Why would you rather eat that than like some chicken and broccoli, or whatever, like some healthy meal? And the realization was I was eating those things to comfort myself, to soothe myself, and to kind of try and quell those thoughts going on in my head. Um, and so once I was just able to make that shift, then I found that like my desire to eat better and my desire to exercise, those went up tremendously because I was no longer focused on what do other people think about me? What does my dad think about where I am? How does he see me? It was more about how I saw myself. And with the gym, I stopped doing so much like, oh, what would my dad do in this situation? And I actually like did my own research and I figured out what would be a good fitness plan for me. What are my goals? What do I want to accomplish? And I like created a fitness plan customized for myself. I used this app called GFit. It's spelled JEFIT. It's in the App Store, and you can like write your own workouts in there. There also are like other ones like templates that you can follow. But I created a workout for myself and for the goals that I wanted. Um, and then as far as my nutrition went, I decided I wasn't going to focus on any specific diet, but more so just you know kind of getting to a place where like I wanted to eat better, wanted to do better. And eventually, I'll talk about it like a little bit later on. But when I hit a plateau, I did kind of go into intermittent fasting, and that's worked really well for me as well. Uh, but in just like adjusting my mindset around things and how I approach fitness, that's kind of where my journey started. I was able to lose about 30 pounds over the course of like 6 or 7 months or so.
So that's really
Um,
good weight loss rate then. I mean,
yeah,
that's,
yeah,
5, 6 pounds a month. That's consistently really
exactly.
well. You hit on, I think, something that most people overlook, and I think your situation made it that much more apparent, where you kind of knew all of the what's and the whys. Like the what's and the hows, but maybe the why
Mhm.
was off. One thing that I would love to get some insight from you with, would love to get some insight from you is did you replace maybe those negative thoughts with something else? How did you actually change your your mindset around food and fitness? I think that's something I constantly hear people say. They'll say, "Oh, I just changed how I thought about food."
Mhm.
But can you give me an example of maybe how you replaced it with a better thought or what that actually looked like that could help the viewers make that change themselves?
Yeah. So in terms of fitness, the way I changed there, or like the way I changed how I viewed it, um, was I stopped worrying about what other people would think. I stopped worrying about like, oh, I'm this big, what how do people see me? What do people think of my size? What about how my clothes fit? I stopped thinking about all of that and just started thinking about the fact that I wanted to be a healthy person, that I wanted to be able to be mobile. I wanted like a good range of mobility in my joints. I wanted to be able to not, to stand up and not have my back hurt, my knees hurt. And I just thought about these are my personal goals. This is how I want to feel. I don't care about what other people feel, how they feel about me. This is what I want to feel. And also another thing that helped, I actually had a really, a good friend of mine, and we started working out together. You actually Patrick.
Yeah,
And
yep,
Patrick and I
that,
we worked out together for a while. And keeping each other accountable was a big thing. We would text each other every day, hey, you going to the gym? Or you want to go to the gym at this time, that time? And so yeah, and keeping each other accountable, we were able to text each other. We went to the gym together almost every day. And that's kind of like when I started like losing a good amount of weight. Because I wasn't going because like, oh, what would my dad think? I was going because this is how I want to feel. This is what I'm going to do to get there. And that's also kind of when I started like being more creative with my fitness. I was incorporating swimming, um, and different types of movements, like stretching and stuff like that to increase mobility. But yeah, the big thing was just changing and not thinking so much about what other people thought. I think that's a big thing, is that we view ourselves through the lens of everyone else, or through the lens of Instagram, or whatever TV show you're watching. You'd be like, oh, I want to look like that person because that person is attractive, or like everybody else sees this person and that person looks good. That person is objectively this, objectively that. You start to compare yourself. And I stopped doing that and just focus on how I wanted to feel, and how I wanted to feel about myself. So that was the big thing with fitness. As far as with food, the big thing there was I changed the reasons that I would eat, because a lot of times the reasons that people eat is for comfort, right? You eat something because, or for comfort, and usually if it's trying to comfort you, it's because it tastes good. And so
yeah, that's really
Pop
common.
Tarts, yeah, Pop Tarts taste amazing, and that's something a lot of people ate as kids, but it has no like nutritional value for you. But if you're feeling down in the dumps, if you had a tough day at work, if you have a relationship problems, then a Pop Tart tastes good. It's a great way to comfort you, and your brain is going to eat that up, right? Um, but once I changed my mindset about fitness, and this is how I want to feel, this is what I'm trying to accomplish, then it was much easier to, instead of going for a Pop Tart, be like, let me get some brand cereal and add like some white chocolate chips into that with peanut butter. And that's like a go-to snack for me. It's a great way to get in some good fiber. But it also is like, a little bit of a guilty pleasure because you've got the white chocolate chips, but you've got like crunchy brand cereal, which got plenty of fiber.
Yeah, that
It
sounds
sounds like a
good.
weird combination, but it's actually, it's delicious. And so yeah, it's a good way to get like a sweet treat, and you've got your peanut butter in there for added protein. It's a good way to get that sweet treat in, but also like a little bit of health with it. Same with like I'll eat a lot of protein bars instead of a candy bar. Right, so instead of getting a Twix, which is my favorite candy bar, I'll go get the brand. It's like a one bar or like a Gatorade protein bar, and those have their merits as to whether they're super great for you, but it's a good way to get in some fast protein and also kind of satisfy that sweet tooth. And so yeah,
I
I just
really
started
like
kind of
what
doing
you're,
things like that. Sorry, go ahead.
oh, sorry, I really like what you're explaining because you really just shifted your entire perspective, right? So I think a lot
Mhm.
of times people just focus on their good days. And
Yeah.
you said like, okay, hey, let's focus on my bad day. If I want to go home and eat a bunch of Pop Tarts, how do I make that a little better? If I can't jump straight to a salad or lean meat, well, maybe I
Mhm.
can still eat something sweet and make that better and replace the Twix for a protein bar. And I really like what you're doing there because you're taking the time to make even maybe some of your worst habits a little better, and then everything kind of followed. So that's really wise.
Yeah. Um, Yeah, it was adjustments. And it wasn't perfect. Like I still went to Burger King. I still got my Bacon Kings, but maybe I would take the bun off and just eat, just the meat. And then you've got your protein, your fat. Still not the greatest for you, but just a little bit of an adjustment. Oh, I need to get in X amount of protein. These beef patties are a good way to do that. Or also I started incorporating a lot of like grilling into my diet. I bought a barbecue grill. Love to grill, love to experiment with different marinades and stuff like that. So I made it fun. I would go, um, make a fun marinade, put some chicken breasts or some chicken thighs in it, throw those on the grill, eat that with some rice or something like that. And that's a great way to get in like a really tasty meal that isn't super hard. And grilling is a lot faster than baking it in the oven or cooking it on the stove. And so
Right?
I
Just made
can
it work for
marinate
you.
exactly. Yeah, it's something you can do all year round. So yeah, those little adjustments there, and as far as the things that I maybe shouldn't have eaten as much, I still ate a lot of those. And honestly, to this day, I still do. I probably have more snacks in the house right now than I should. But I kind of space it out, and I also try to just keep my goal in mind of this is what I'm trying to accomplish. This is how I want to feel. Let me make sure that I'm doing what I need to do. And so for example, today. Um, I ate, some pizza for lunch, but before that, I went out and I took a walk for an hour and a half. I was walking up hills in Salt Lake, uh, got caught in the rain, got soaked, but I was jogging back, and so I got in um, a great amount of exercise that way. But yeah, that original, like going back to kind of like that first 30 pounds that I lost, those adjustments, those small adjustments were good, and that was a great place to start. And
And then it
then
said you hit a wall, right?
I
Right
did,
around
yeah,
30 pounds.
yep, I hit a
So,
huge
how did
plateau.
you handle hitting that plateau, both psychologically and what did you do to end up getting past it?
It was frustrating for sure because I saw some good progress. I lost the weight, and then it kind of just got to a standstill for a while, where I wasn't really gaining weight, but I wasn't really losing weight either. And that was frustrating for me. And I kind of started to lose motivation a little bit at times. And I have to remind myself, no, keep doing what you're doing. Still go to the gym, still do that, still focus on your mental. And that was helpful, but it was tough to kind of get over that plateau. Um, And the interesting thing about plateaus and reaching those is that the answer is always the same. There's always a reason that you hit that plateau, and it's because your output is not as high as your input, right? It's the same, and like that's the key to
Yeah.
losing weight, but getting there is different for everybody. Like everybody knows, oh, eat less calories, burn more calories, you're gonna lose weight, but it's so difficult to get to that point. Um, and I was still going to the gym, still exercising, but I wasn't able to achieve that goal of increasing my output, decreasing my input. Um, and what worked for me at that point was finding a way to track both my input and my output, and just kind of like finding a way to gamify my fitness. And so I
Oh,
have
okay.
this device called a MyZone. Are you familiar with those?
I have not.
Okay, so yeah, so I actually was first introduced to it when I was a personal trainer, but it's called a MyZone and it's a fitness tracker. The one that they have now is actually really nice. You can wear it on your wrist, on your arm, or around your chest, and it tracks your heart rate and it gives you a zone, like a colored zone, based on how much your heart is beating, or like your based on your target heart rate. So you put in
It's
your
almost like Orange Theory, but you get to take it with you. That's really
exactly,
cool.
yeah, you can do it anywhere. So and it's waterproof. So I wear it when I'm in the pool. I wear it when I'm taking a walk. I wear it when I'm on a hike, and it's a great way to track your output. It shows you, roughly how many calories you burn. It's not super scientific, but it shows you how many calories you burn, and it'll also give you your zones. So if you're doing like minimal output, like let's say you're sitting down stretching, you're in the gray zone. If you're maybe taking a brisk walk, you enter the blue zone. Once maybe you're walking up a hill, you're in the green. Then if you're jogging, you're in the yellow. Then if you're jogging a little faster, you're in the red, and that's kind of like your maximum output. And then for each of those zones, you get a certain amount of points for every minute that you're in that zone. And so, and then I have a specific goal or amount of points that I'm trying to reach every single month. And so, I'll put that on, I'll track my points for the day or, during my workout, and I'll take it off and I'll see, oh, I scored this many points today. I was in these different zones. It's a really fun way to just kind of like track. the work that you're doing and feel good about it. And then, every month that you get, that you achieve your goal of points, then it works towards like a badge that you can get in the app. And so I've loved that. Finding a way to gamify fitness just made it that much more enjoyable for me and also helped to change my relationship with it.
That makes a
Another
lot of
thing I
sense.
did, yeah, another thing that I did to kind of even get more specific with it was I bought an Apple Watch and I started taking walks and that kind of morphed into taking jogs as well. And so, uh, I start, with the Apple Watch, it's nice because you can track so many different kinds of exercise and it gets even more like clinical and specific with it. And so that's been
You
another
dial it
fun way
in.
that exactly, yeah. So, I'll take an outdoor walk or I'll go to the gym and turn on, Apple Watch traditional strength training or Apple Watch indoor run, indoor walk, or outdoor jog, whatever. Um, and then I can track, the distance that I walked or the calories that I burned while I was lifting weights, whatever the case. And then also, I can go into the fitness app and see all of the different things that I've achieved. I can see if I achieved my goal for the month of August or for the month of July, what have you. Track the amount of miles that I've walked, all of that. And with walking, that was actually what broke that plateau for me, was just going on walks with the time that I have. With
And
my
how long did
job,
it take you to break it? How
uh,
long were you stuck?
I was stuck for probably about not quite a year, maybe like 8 or 9 months. I
That
was
was a
stuck in
pretty
that
long
plateau.
plateau.
It was, yeah. And I would fluctuate. So I mean, maybe I'd lose 3 or 4 pounds in a month, and then a couple weeks later, I might have gained 2 or 3 pounds back, right? And so it was kind of like this. I wasn't really trending downwards, but I wasn't really trending upwards either. I was just kind of staying in the same, maybe 10 pound range. But breaking that plateau was when I was able to lose that last like 50, 60 pounds. And it was really, I
And
just
then it was
started
just a
walking.
straight shot down. You went
Yeah,
from
straight
30
shot
pounds
down.
down. That's so there's that's really interesting. That kind of that missing piece then was just you figured out a one way to just track things accurately. And were you
Mhm.
tracking nutrition as well or just your exercise?
Just exercise. I've just been tracking that. And I also started the same time that I started doing the walking, I started my intermittent fasting as well.
Okay.
And so, for me, that works. I don't eat anything before 12 p.m. And, that's easy for me. I get up around, 6:30, 7 o'clock. I go to work. I'm kind of busy all morning, so I'll just have a cup of coffee, black coffee. Uh,
Hmm.
and that's a good way for me to, kind of, I'll drink a lot of water in the morning as well. So that keeps me good and hydrated. And then I just don't eat anything before 12. And then I kind of have the rest of the day, like a 12-hour period where I can just, eat. And during that time, I'm like, well, I don't have that many meals to eat, so let me make it count. And that's just kind of like what's in my head. That I need to make this meal count. I need to make this snack count. So instead of eating a bag of chips, I might grab a protein bar instead. uh, because I'm trying to make it count because I have one less meal to get in everything that I want, or a couple less
Right.
snacks. And
Since
so
you're
I
limiting that frequency just instinctually,
exactly,
you're like, I got to
yeah, yeah.
increase quality because I'm not going to be able to make this up. How long has it taken you to lose that last 60 pounds that you lost?
So last 60 pounds, that's taken me. I started my walks and intermittent fasting in February,
Okay.
and we're in September now. So yeah, during that time, I've lost that. And I'm not walking as much as I used to, but at one point I was walking upwards of like 7 to 8 miles a day.
Okay. So a
Every time I had a break, like a 15-minute break at work, I would get in a quick walk or I get in a quick jog. If I had like a lunch break, I would just, put on my tennis shoes. I had an hour lunch break, so I walk 30 minutes in one direction with the timer set. When the timer goes off, I, reset the timer, turn around and walk 30 minutes back. And just trying to like keep up a good pace. I tried to walk uphill as much as I could. And I'm at the same time I'm wearing my little my zone so I can track like my output, how fast my heart is beating, what zone I'm in. And it was just a really enjoyable way to get outside, see beautiful, nature. I downloaded an app on my phone that allowed me to like take pictures of plants and identify those as well. So I'd be walking, I'd see a cool looking leaf, and I'd be like, oh, what plant is this? Take a picture of it. I can identify it. And so again, it was just me like finding ways to enjoy the exercise that I was doing and finding ways to like make it fun for me. And so, being a nerd, identifying plants while I'm out taking a walk was another fun way that I did that.
That's
That
great. I
kind of
would have
like helped to
never
adjust that.
thought about that. But you are like the master of making exercise just a fun game.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
that,
growing up for me, it just wasn't fun. Like it was always it felt like a chore because of how I grew up. And
right.
so I carried that into my adult life. And so, yeah, I had to find ways to make it fun if I was going to be able to find motivation to do it on a daily basis.
That's brilliant. I really, really like that. So you're now down 90 pounds. You're still fast doing intermittent fasting. You're feeling good. Or is your goal to keep going down? Are you trying to maintain? What are you looking at for the future?
So my goal as of late has been really like building up my body. I want to be like a very functional fit, right? So I don't want to be super huge, super jacked and muscular like a bodybuilder or anything like that. Because at that point, if you have that much muscle on your body, it's not much different from having that much fat on your body, right? Because your
Right,
heart's still having to do that same amount of work. And so right now, I'm just trying to be like a very functional fit. Um, and I track my body fat percentage as opposed to my weight. And so in doing that, I'm able to see, okay, am I in a healthy range? Can I go a little bit lower? So right now, just working on getting my body fat percentage down. I think the highest body fat percentage I ever got to was about 34%. And I've been able to drop that by over 10%. Right. So just continuing to do that and focusing more on tracking that as opposed to tracking my weight because weight's going to fluctuate. I may get on the
right.
scale one morning and I weigh X amount of pounds. And the next day I get on the scale after, I don't know, a big meal the night before and I weigh X amount of pounds. I'm like, oh, what happened? I
We've all seen
exercised.
that.
You kind of start to spiral, right? And so if I'm
Yep.
focusing on something else, then that one meal where my weight goes up or that, extra cup of water that I drank before I got on the scale is not going to affect me as much. Uh, so right now the goal is to continue losing weight. I'm not trying to, you know, be super shredded, six pack abs or anything like that. If that happens, then great. But I'm not so much focused on my appearance so much as I am on just being a healthy individual and being able to maintain that for the rest of my life.
I really like how you said that. So we've covered a lot. I've really been impressed with how you've articulated a lot of things. I wish I could have come up with as good a way to say them, honestly. I'm going to copy how you've said these things. But you've lost 90 pounds. You've went through a lot of self-development. And I always think that's good to try to learn from your own mistakes and other people's mistakes as well. So what do you think were some of your biggest mistakes during this journey that if you were going to restart, you would avoid completely?
Yeah, I remember writing New Year's resolutions to have a six pack by X amount of time. Um, Failed miserably at that, right? Because the goal was all about appearance and what looks good as opposed to where I wanted to be. So making goals about appearance are um, for me, it wasn't motivating. I don't know about other people, but for me, that wasn't motivating because it's very superficial. Like if you make a goal to look a certain way, and let's say someone has a goal to get a six pack and they lose 50 pounds, but they don't have a six pack. Well, then they failed in their mind. All right. They don't observe the fact that they lost those 50 pounds, right? So making the goal to be healthy and happy was much more motivating for me than like any goal about looking a certain way or appearing a certain way. Even like, in the past making goals about like body fat percentage. Uh, Again, that wasn't an effective way to motivate me. So that was a huge mistake that I said I think I made. Also, uh, trying to go on diets. Like I tried keto, I tried intermittent fasting before, but on a much more strict basis. I tried chicken and rice only, all those kinds of things. They're like self punishments, right? You're kind of punishing yourself
Right.
and being like, oh, if I do this, or I just have to discipline myself and only do this or only do that, and it again takes all the fun out of it. So I found ways to make it enjoyable. So I think, yeah, a lot of people with fitness culture in the United States, it's very like punishment and reward based. People think you have to go on this crash diet to lose X amount of weights. And so it's like, oh, if I punish myself by only eating salads, then I'll lose X amount of pounds and that'll be my reward. But that almost
Right.
never works. Right. So I stopped punishing myself and just started enjoying myself. Those are probably the two biggest mistakes I think I made is just, making goals based on appearance, or some sort of specific outcome that didn't have to do with like my personal happiness and healthiness. And then also, you know, trying to punish myself and like taking the fun out of fitness life, right, in general. So, yeah.
That's great. So then the last question, because I think a lot of people who are listening or tuning in might be at the start of their journey or maybe not quite as far in as you've been, is if you were going to talk to someone and just give them that one quick tip of, hey, if you're about to go try to do something great as what you just did, lost 90 pounds, what would that be?
There are so many resources out there that it's really, it can be overwhelming to try and figure out what you want to do. Like everybody wants to have a fitness plan, stuff like that. Honestly, one thing that helped me a lot, I just went into Chat GPT and I said, hey, write a fitness plan for a 28-year-old man who's working on, uh, you know, losing body fat and gaining muscle. And you can, specify it by the amount of days. And so mine, I think it's a 4 to 5 day plan. So, I have 4 days that I try to get in the gym for sure. And then one day that's kind of optional, right? And, I can kind of mix and match that depending on the week because, everybody can't go to the gym 7 days a week. I don't have the resources of Dwayne The Rock
Right.
Johnson, right? Where I can carry a gym around with me. And so, yeah, I used Chat GPT. I made myself a plan that fit my schedule. And I wrote it into the GFit app. It's called Time Crunch Hypertrophy. So all of my workouts are under an hour. I mean, I'm able to get into the gym at least 4 days a week, get a workout in, and be out of the gym. If I do a little cardio, I'm out of the gym in an hour and a half. And so that way, it's a lot less than those 2, 3 hours I used to spend in the gym. It's a lot more reasonable. And yeah, I think the biggest thing I would tell other people is just like don't overwhelm yourself. Just make it as simple as possible. So using Chat GPT kind of helps take out having to go through a bunch of different websites and see a bunch of different people's opinions. You just get the straight science. So yeah, simplifying things as much as
I really
possible
like
is
that
huge.
tool. I've seen some amazing things come out of ChatGPT. I'm
Oh
really
yeah,
excited. It's
it's
so
my pleasure.
great to
Yeah,
to see. I'm really excited. Hopefully that is something that more people will start to use.
for sure. It's a
So,
great resource.
well, thank you so much for your time. I learned a lot. I'm sure all of our listeners did as well. Once again, Nate Bird, awesome guy, lost 90 pounds, changed his life. I think made more of a psychological progression than anyone I've talked to so far. So I've been really impressed. Thank you for your time, and I think we'll kind of end it there, unless if you have anything else to say.
No, thank you so much for having me on. I'm honored to be on the podcast and share my experience. Hopefully, it helps some other people out there.
Awesome. Thanks.